I didn't because I didn't intentionally. I did say, like, we'll start with the bad teams, then I explained the format, and then we just went to the good teams. So, like, we'll do the bad teams now. It's all good.
Okay.
What people don't know is I do about, like, 7 shows a week, mate, and I'm tired sometimes. Guess what? I can't always be at my 10 out of 10 performance. But you know what? Even my 7 out of 10 is pretty good. In that way, aren't I the faker of podcasts? No, of course not, because I'm not washed. And I never smashed my head off a wall. Well, at least not on camera anyway. To be fair, he didn't try to. He actually tried to do it off camera, so who knows? Right? The obvious one I want to start with it has to be SK Gaming, because, bro, if Carmine Corp was the surprise of the split, this is the biggest disappointment of the split. Like, this was the team where, you remember, the BO1s, they really looked like they were ready to leapfrog Fnatic and BDS, and maybe they can be like, you know, maybe there's a new challenger for fucking G2, and then you're even looking at the way they're playing, like, they've got, like, a strong bot lane. Obviously, like, Niski's usually a facilitator, but he's not a bad player. Ismo obviously was where people had questions, but you think Irrelevant. I think a lot of people even to this day think Irrelevant's the best top laner in LEC. They had all these things that, like, you know, so many things going for them, but what a fucking shit playoffs. What a bad playoff run, bro. What do you think?
I mean, it's always the same with SK. Always good regular season, come into playoffs, haven't worked on anything besides winning in best of ones, and then they just shit themselves. But the one thing I will say, because just a quick mention, you talked about the Oscarini like getting replaced. I would like to see Irrelevant on Fnatic. Like, that's the guy I would like to see. That would be actually fire. But to return on SK...
And by the way, if Irrelevant goes to Fnatic, we're definitely signing Upset, because he can weak side all day long, baby. That's the Upset. That would be Upset's favourite player, but he's even German. They'd love it.
I mean, the thing about Irrelevant as well, like, he can be left alone and still go even and still be useful. Like, that is what's really nice about having Irrelevant on your team. And you can play, like, heavily more towards bot side. But SK just seem every single time in playoffs, it seems like they haven't learned anything throughout the regular season. And I think Niske had one of the worst playoffs run, like, I've seen in a very long time. Like, what he did on that Talia, like, getting caught, ulting around, like, it was one of the most, like... Because I think Niske is the heart of this team. Like, Niske needs to be performing, or at least not running it down, like, at least.
No.
Otherwise, the team just crumbles. And like I mentioned earlier about, like, the meta shifting, etc. And Isma has a good Nidalee, he plays that champ. But it's really affected him not being able to play these kind of champions like Sejuani played the Poppy like in the early season when they're able to actually play these hyperactive junglers. Because Isma, to me, when I look at him play, he's just a reactive jungler, a psychopath, pretty much. Like, he likes to get into enemies' face, react to them, and always like contest them. But that's just not working anymore, especially when your mid laner is like too far behind. And I think it's one of the most unfortunate playoffs run I've seen, like, considering how the regular season went, they went first place, etc. It is the biggest disappointment I've seen in a very long time. So, yeah.
Also, I'll just throw this out there because I looked it up. Irrelevant's contract ends in the off-season this year, guys. So I think that will be like a bidding war, mate, because I think there's a lot of teams should want this guy. I think he's really fucking good. I mean, by the way, the reason Fnatic definitely should is he always bodies Oscar, and even like, it's even the guy that you've just watched bash his head in all day. So, like, no, I'm with you. That guy, I hope there's like a crazy bidding war and all the top teams that aren't G2 basically go for this guy.
I think there will be, honestly. Like, he does look like the most consistent top laner out of... Like, you could even put him in G2, even though Broken Blade is...
You could if you want.
You could. Like, I would just like to see him with an actual team and that actually plays the game and uses him to his strengths. Because he can play the weak side, he can play the strong side. He's just the most consistent player on that team, just overall. But I was a bit sad about, like, their bot lane. They had a really good early season in the split. But Luon and Isma just hasn't looked the same, like, towards the playoffs. They just don't seem on the same page. And I think it is, like, relevant to the meta as well, and with Niske having a poor performance. So unless they... I don't know. I don't see them like randomly stepping up. But like every single year is the same thing. I don't know if their coaching staff is like, this is all they know. It's the early game and how to win best of ones, and then they come into best of fives. Their adaptation of drafts and adaptation just like in a best of five series is very poor regarding to their enemy. And yeah, I don't see them going far in this one. Like, it's very sad to talk about this like season finals when you see when we all kind of already know who is going to make it. Because, like I said before, the gap between G2, Fnatic, and then BDS is just so huge. Like, between... If there was at least a little bit close, you know, like, oh, these teams, maybe, you know, they could make an upset. But that's just... There is no hope for that. I'm hoping to be proven wrong, because I would like to send, like, someone different to Worlds, you know? Because BDS went last year, and it was the same 3 lineup. Like, it would be nice to see, I don't know, maybe randomly, like, GX, even though that's not happening. Just another contender, please. Just another contender. That's all I want to see. Like someone that can contend with the top 3 teams.
Do you remember in 2021 when Perks played on Cloud9, there was an infamous Reddit thread where it was in the summer and it was like Perks accountability thread or something. And then it was all those people who were just going like, he cost $6 million and he's hinting and dying. And bro, we need to have an accountability thread for Nisky now. And I'll tell you why. Because as someone who in the early days would be called a hater of Nisky, because I always used to say shit like on Cloud9, like, bro, I'd still bring Froggen in over this guy. Like, I think you just win more, you know, like he was never a stud mid laner for me. And on Splice, same story. On Envy, same story. But here's the thing. Once he got to Mad Lions, he did start to impress me, actually. Like, I'm on the original Mad Lions even. Like, he was, like, again, as you say, he was, like, the total heart of the team. He reminds me, in that sense, totally different playing style, of Nuke Doc. If you ever have Nuke Doc on a team, it's going to be a Nuke Doc team. He's going to call all the players. He's going to make the moves. He's probably going to tell the jungler what he wants to do all the time. He's going to give you very clear instructions, and then you're going to win and lose, in theory, in Nuke Doc off his macro and understanding. And in terms of Nisky, he's supposed to be playmaking. You're supposed to go and make a play with someone, go to another lane. By the way, if people don't know, champions like Talia are supposed to be right in his wheelhouse. That's supposed to be exactly the best picks for this guy. If you think of last year, the story goes that the reason LYO wanted him out is this guy was just like they couldn't function as players. They have personality difference and playing style difference. And then you look at this year. Fucking hell, mate. Like, he has BO1s that are good, but every playoffs, he just bombs it. And the worst thing is he's not losing like he's behind in CS or just like he doesn't carry the game, he chokes. Bro, he actually just straight up throws these games. Like, he does some of the most essentially, my joke would be, if I flame Humanoid for inting, this is like, he's got the inting of Humanoid without the fucking players, without the upside in the playoffs. Like, I can't trust this guy to win any series now. Because this was kind of my last straw. I kept thinking, but they've got the new bot lane now, maybe that'll change things. No, this guy's just inting, bro. Like, something's happened, and because he had that middle period, which was really good, he was probably underrated. Yeah. Even in winter of last year, he was pretty good. But the problem is, I feel like people also, because they like him, everyone gives him a bit of a pass. I think at this point in time, we have to be a bit harsher, because I'll give you an obvious example. If you think actually of how Isma seems like he wants to play, I don't even think that narrative of like, yeah, but if you get Nisky, he's like the jungle whisperer. I think that's for different style of junglers. I don't even know that works for Isma. Like, the joke is, if I had to make another roster move, right? Here's the roster move I'm making immediately on SK. Now, look, I'm obviously imagining we keep the rest of the team in irrelevant. If I can make one roster move, it's another obvious one. It's another bias Thorin picking his favourite players. Bro, I would just bring Larson into this team. You put Larson in Nisky's spot, and I think this team would be way better. So I think people have to, I think Nisky himself, by the way, I don't know if he does this. I watched that episode of Sackdown on LFM, but that was mainly about like his career and stuff. I don't actually know how he thinks of himself currently, but I hope he knows he's having some bad fucking splits, mate, because to me, he's a veteran as well. Remember, he's won the LEC. Dude, like these are not the mistakes I would expect of like a champion. Remember, he's supposed to be in that elite tier. Right now, it should be like Caps. It's mainly just Caps on his own, but let's say like A tier should be Humanoid, Larson, and Nisky. In an ideal world, you'd have all those three players. They'd all be in that. They'd all earned that. They've all had the history. They've all got their own playing style. Everyone knows how to play around them. But I tell you what, right now I can't trust Nisky, mate.
Yeah, no, he's had very poor playoffs like every single time. I think it's actually really sad because his regular season was fine. I think it was good. Like, he had a good regular season. He was a big part of their success in the terms of best of ones, why they were able to make top one. But I don't know what is happening like in the playoffs in the terms of coaching staff or their scrims. It seems like they're just throwing everything out, or the opponents are just able to actually read them as they are playing the same way that they are always playing. They, like I said before, their adaptation throughout drafts and throughout the game is very poor when it comes to playoffs. They do not survive in a best of 5. They don't survive in a best of 3 even, which is just a sad disappointment for this kind of lineup where you bring in 2 new Koreans, you bench Exakick and DOS, and it's supposed to be like this magnificent split that you had, your top one. Hey, this team might actually go to Worlds, and then it comes to playoffs, and then just everything goes out the window. It's a very sad story. I do blame Nisky like for the playoffs run with the Talia. Which game was it when he played Talia and he just ulted on top of G2, was it?
I think so.
But yeah, he that's where he had like one of the worst games where he was just getting caught over and over again, and then like solo, like it was just awful. Because you can lose and you can be behind, but that's the perks of being a veteran. You're able to know how to slowly lose and not just like fully run into them and lose and basically end the game like in like 5 minutes.
I think maybe it was against Fnatic possibly. Might be in the Fnatic upper bracket game.
I can just check here.
Because he played Talia into Humanoid's Tristana.
Oh,
game 1.
It's probably that one.
Upper bracket semi-finals, game 1.
Yeah, that's the one where they just get stomped 2-0 and then they're out. Yeah. I remember, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one I watched recently. But that one was just horrendous, honestly.
I'll give you a joke narrative. It's not a real narrative, but I'll give you a joke because there's an interesting detail I've found recently. One thing Monty always told me is my strength, because you have to realise I get gaslit by fans every day of my life that somehow I'm the only idiot in the world that can never learn a single thing about any game. I don't believe it or not, bro. People in CS say I know nothing, and I watched the entire history of CS for 23 years in every game, and I knew all the players. But to a moron, because I was never a pro, I'll never know anything about the game. It's not even that I have bad knowledge or bad. I just don't know anything about the game. I'm the only person incapable of learning. So when people gaslight you like that, right, it's not that you believe it, but it will actually skew your own opinion of yourself. Like, I'll give you an example. In League, I used to always go out of my way to go, as a layman, as somebody who's not an expert. And Monty once took me aside and said, you know, like, you can say that if it's things that you know you don't specialise in, like you're not that good at draft, or you don't know like certain like fucking, I don't know, lane matchups would be an obvious one for like mid lane or something. Maybe you're not as good at that. But he said you shouldn't say that like as if you don't know anything about the game, though, because he said you've also watched all of League of Legends, though. You watched all the games. And he always pointed out, and I've always said, I actually am grateful for this. What he pointed out to me, because in CS I did follow the game. I think I am an expert in that game. In League, my strength basically is one, narratives, obviously. It's what I do in my job. But the other thing is, I think I'm pretty good usually at like player performance, like evaluating who's playing well or who relative to the best players. And so one of the things I think I've got really good at is to tell the story of a player. I use like a sort of archetypal approach. I look at what style of mid laner that is, and then I look at other great mid laners and I go, who's similar? Who has similar strengths? And there's two players I think I've nailed. And what's insane is years later in interviews, it's come out I'm right. So the two that I thought I was just drawing a parallel, but it's even crazier, dude. It turns out these two European players just studied those players. And the two players are Kazi, I used to always say when he got good, dude, he's sort of like Jackie now. It turns out his coach just told him, a mentor, study Jackie, and he really did play like that. And then the one for Niski, which he revealed himself is, it always was obviously Doinby, because he was doing that like style again where you, and he even admitted himself he watched all the Doinby games. So my joke would be, if you don't know, guys, Doinby retired at the end of 2022, and I'm saying Winter Split last year was the last good Niski split. Well, the joke is he ran out of Doinby VODs, didn't he? There was no more Doinby VODs to study, so he hasn't been able to learn the game since then. He's stuck it. It's a joke narrative anyway, but you get the premise of what I'm saying. To see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content, well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.